integers, prime numbers, composite numbers, the stuffs that you had been learning right from your primary section, only that is tested. No complex arithmetic is tested. You don't have modulo arithmetic, something that you encounter in a mathematical Olympiad. Nothing of that sort is tested in GRE. Very, very basic stuff, but you should be really extremely thorough with the basic stuff. You should know what a remainder is. You should know what are factors. You should be thorough with what are multiples, what are divisors, how do you get a remainder, and what are even integers, odd integers, prime numbers, composite numbers. You should be thorough with it. That concept clarity is very much required to crack arithmetic. Algebra, intertwined with arithmetic, you will have linear equations, you will have quadratic equations too in algebra. And geometry, again the very basic stuff, right from lines and angles to three-dimensional geometry. And three-dimensional geometry, they don't go beyond your cubes, cuboids, and cylinders. No prism, no parallelepiped, nothing like that is included. It's like only cubes, cuboids, and cylinders. Very, very basic geometry questions will be asked. I hope you all are familiar with your school surface areas and volumes chapter. I know that it's a dreaded thing for most of you. No tedious calculations in GRE. Let me tell you that. In GRE, you will not encounter any long calculations. No large numbers will be given to you. It is just a skill-based exam. It's a skill-based exam and not a knowledge-based exam. Nobody is going to test what you do not know. It is very basic application, analytical approach is required. And data analysis, anything in statistics, right from mean median mode to graph interpretation. All these are tested extensively, but very basic stuff. And in all these topics, you have the following question types. You will have a numeric entry question where a box will be provided to you. You just have to plug in your answer here. A box where you will have to write integers or decimals only. And if you need a fraction, need to write a fraction, it will be given as a numerator by denominator. A quantitative comparison question. Two quantities will be given to you, quantity A and quantity B. You need to check which one is greater. This is eventually a multiple choice question where 4 options are fixed. Quantity A is greater or quantity B is greater, or both quantities are equal, or the relationship cannot be determined. Data interpretation involves only graphs. It is very, very simple, but this is where children most probably go wrong because they don't look at the graph properly. Looking at the graph is a tactic by itself. And those who are enrolled, you know that we have a webinar video exclusively on data interpretation, exclusively on several subtopics in Quant. Then multiple choice questions with a single answer where only one answer is correct. You do have multiple answer questions where you need to select more than one's answer choice. Having said that, now, when you encounter an exam, I was a school teacher earlier, and I know most of the students would want to ask me, ma'am, which topic carries the maximum weightage? So they want to prioritize the topic. Why do they do that? So that just in case you lose out on the time for preparing, you still would have covered the most important topics and the topics with maximum weightage. So I've taken efforts to prioritize the topics from the feedback given by students and from previous GRE papers. Arithmetic, geometry, data interpretation, data analysis. I have not included algebra here because algebra is always intertwined with arithmetic. So which one carries first priority? Data interpretation. You will have 3 to 5 questions in GRE with a medium and or to high level difficulty. Right? The difficulty level is also specified here. Data interpretation comes first. But difficulty, I don't mean long calculations. As I told you again, difficulty, I mean tricky questions where you're bound to fall into trap if you don't look at the graphs properly, if you don't read the question properly. But once you comprehend the questions properly, that's the easiest scoring part and you will not go wrong. Let me tell you, there will not be anything that you will not know. They strictly follow the syllabus in GRE. Nothing beyond that will be tested and you don't have to take pains to apply your calculus here. Nothing like that. Nothing of that sort will be tested in GRE. No question will involve or expect you to include calculus or expect you to include trigonometry. Nothing like that in GRE. Then data analysis. After data interpretation comes data analysis, maximum weightage. Next weightage, you will have probability, permutations, combinations, which normally students go wrong if they don't understand concept. properly. And again, for those who are enrolled with us, we have exclusive webinar videos on probability, exclusive webinar videos on permutations, combinations, and they have the difficulty level of questions will be medium to high, and the priority is second priority for this, and a third priority for arithmetic with algebra versus algebra. There'll be 6 to 8 questions, and all these questions mostly will be under properties of integers, factors and multiples, prime numbers, composite numbers, squares of numbers. Only that will be tested, but you need to be really clear with the concepts here. And don't go beyond your 10th standard syllabus except for data analysis, where a little bit of permutations, combinations is also included. And again, if you are interested, you could look at our webinar videos where the concept clarity is a must and the concept is taught really well in the webinar video. Right. And the least weightage is for geometry. You just encounter 2 to 3 questions in geometry. But then those 2 to 3 questions that you encounter will be of a medium or a high difficulty level. So you should also be very careful to go through, if at all you want to get a perfect score, 170. That is what this webinar is all about. And so we don't want you to miss out on these geometry tricky questions also. And again, all these tricky questions are covered on our platform. Now, on the platform, again, there are many such webinar videos and reading tasks with all these tricky questions and solutions for these things. Okay, now, going further, let me just quickly go through the techniques to score a perfect 170 in GRE Quant. Now, as we go through this webinar, I'll quickly elaborate on each of these techniques. Right. First one, mistakes. It's very common, especially in math. Even a person who is very sincere, who has been normally getting a centum when it comes to the final exam, the annual exam or the board exams, or your GRE, any competitive exam for that matter, they do make mistakes, right? It's very common. But those, the sincere level, whomever I call them as sincere, I mean those people who had been like following the study plan rigorously and who had been attempting all tests, taking all assessments, taking all the mock tests, they make calculation mistakes, very common. So there are 2 types of mistakes that students normally make: calculation mistakes and conceptual mistakes. Avoid all types of mistakes. Don't fall for traps. Time management. It's a must in all time tests like GRE. Very important to keep a track of the time that you spend per question. It's not over section. I'm talking about per question basis. Implement ZoneF. Now, there are very many mnemonics that we use in GRE Quant on our platform to teach the students to apply shortcuts. All time tests expect you to know the shortcuts. You can do mathematics, any problem solving can be done by any method you want to, but applying shortcuts helps you to solve it faster, because time is a very important criteria in competitive exams like GRE. So it's very important you learn these shortcuts. So we have given these shortcuts in the form of mnemonics like ZoneF, implement ZoneF, implement PIEs for word problems is again another shortcut. Use MIGMO, make an intelligent guess and move further, right? That is MIGMO. So this is another shortcut. Again, back substitute for MCQs and MAQs. Do not go for an analytical approach. It will take a longer time. Go from the answer, keep plugging in from the answer. You arrive at the question, you arrive at the correct answer. That is the back substitution for MCQs and MAQs. Spread out on the averages, average problems. Again, you know what an average here is. When I say arithmetic mean, it's the sum of observations by the number of observations. But then it could also be weighted mean, weighted average. Don't go by the formula. It will take a longer time. Spread out the averages as we move along. I'll give you an example how to approach average problems. Again, exclusively on averages, we do have a webinar video on our platform. If you enroll on our platform, these are all available to you as a package along with the assessments that you have. Apply standard percentages. Yes, percentages problems. Very important in any competitive exam, leave alone GRE. Whether it's GMAT or CAT or SAT or anything, any competitive exam entails that you will have a percentage problem, either a direct problem on percentages or as an application for interpretation. Mostly 90% of the graph problems involve percentages. So it's very important you don't go by the formula for percentages, but apply shortcuts. So again, I'll give you an example as we walk through this webinar. Don't use formula unless needed for in quantitative comparison questions. As I told you, Quantitative comparison questions entails that you go for a rational approach or an analytical approach rather than a formula and waste time on it. Use Migmo, make a handout of formulae and shortcuts. Very, very important. At Galvanize, we help you out with this. All those students enrolled with Galvanize, they get a PDF with a formula and shortcuts. Follow the study plan to the dot. Again, at Galvanize, we do this work for you. Those who are not enrolled, unfortunately, you need to chart out a plan amidst your schedule to prepare for GRE and get the perfect 170. Use of on-screen calculator only if necessary. Right. Moving further, let's elaborate on each of these techniques. Common mistakes. As I told you, you could have a conceptual mistakes or a calculation mistake. Conceptual mistakes, calculation mistake, conceptual mistakes, very bad, because as I told you, in GRE, when you're going to attempt GRE, make sure your concept clarity is to the dot, it's perfect. Not reading the question properly, it's a very, very common mistake. That too, there are so many other external factors, not only this exam factor that is affecting you. There'll be like so many other factors that will like make you nervous when you sit for an exam. It could be like you are scared of, you have an exam phobia, you have a calculophobia. So many things are there. So in that nervousness, you might not read the question properly, but stay cool and stay calm. Read the question properly to attempt the GRE. Let me give you an example where you don't read the question properly and end up getting a wrong answer. For example, if you have a question like say x plus 3 is equal to 7x minus 9. Solve for x. It doesn't say solve for x, evaluate 1 by x. Assume that it's a numeric entity question and then I'm asking you to write an answer here. Immediate answer would be, the answer would be 7x minus x is 6x is equal to 12 or x is equal to 2. Immediately students will not know that they have to write the value of 1 by x. They would write down the answer as 2, which will be marked as wrong. The answer here is, the question is asking for 1 by x. So the answer here is 0.5. Again, there is just one box here. One box means numerical entry question. You have to write the answer as a decimal. Obviously, when the answer is given like this as a fraction, you will know that you will go wrong if you write it as 2. You know that it has to be 1 by 2. You might be, tempted to look at the question again, prompted to look at the question again. But if just one box is given, you might be tempted to write the value of x, which is wrong. The answer has to be 1 by x, which is 1 by 2 or 0.5. So this is what happens when you don't read the question properly. Then, calculation mistake. As I told you, anybody can make a calculation mistake. So, what are all the ways that you make this calculation mistake? I know when you're like adept at Quant and you're skilled at Quant, there are many students that I have found that handwriting is really bad. So, at GRE, you will be given a rough paper, a scratch paper, which you need to give it back to the examiners. So, when you're going to do the calculations in that paper, make sure you do the rough work neatly. So, the reason is, for example, suppose you're going to do some calculations, say 5 times 6 is equal to 30. In a hurry, it's quite possible you write this as just 3 and move on. And then the further calculations with this number 3, which is wrong. That's a calculation mistake, very common calculation mistake. And also, in the scratch paper, you will write down 1 and 7. There's a quite possibility that you write 1 as 7 and 7 as 1 and then make this calculation mistake, right? So make sure you do the rough work neatly to avoid calculation mistakes, so that when you do it neatly, there is 95% possibility that you can relook at the question, relook at the answer before submitting it. Check whether your answer is right or wrong. Third mistake is making unwarranted assumptions. This is most prevalent in geometry questions. For example, suppose you have a quadrilateral like this, a quadrilateral ABCD is given to you. When you look at this quadrilateral, immediately you will jump to a conclusion it's a square or a rectangle, which is wrong. No information about this quadrilateral is given to you. Unless it's stated that these angles here, the angles or the vertices are right angles, you should never conclude that this is a rectangle or a square. So please be very careful. Unless the textual information states that you have ABCD is a rectangle or ABCD is a square, please do not conclude. Again, the figures might not be drawn to scale in geometry in GRE. So In GRE, it's very, very important you read the textual information for geometry questions. Confusing the units. Again, this is most prevalent in rate problems. Whenever you're going to handle rate problems, solving rate problems per unit hour, units per hour or units per second. This is something that you should be very careful about. Sometimes the question, the values will be given in hours, but the question hours will be in units per second. It might be a numeric entry question, and there is a fair chance that you will go wrong because you have not read the question properly. You have not looked at the units properly. Then, forgetting the smallest prime number. 95% of the students who have enrolled with us seem to be making this mistake. What is the smallest prime number? They all blindly conclude that all prime numbers are odd, which is wrong. You always have the smallest prime number 2. The smallest prime number is 2. Very, very important. You should remember the smallest prime number, which is the only even prime number, which is the number 2. And then after that, all the other prime numbers are odd numbers. So you do have the smallest prime number, which is the even number 2. Then the next mistake is mixing up must be and could be. This is a knack or a tactics by ETS. So what does ETS do? They give you a trap like this. They use this word must be and could be, and students normally fall into this trap. It's a very common mistake and you need to watch out for this. What is the difference between must be and could be? Must be means this statement has to be true for all numbers, right? Any number you plug in, it has to be right. Could be, even for one number, if it's true, you keep marking it as a correct answer. So look at this example here. If A and B are integers with A less than B, then which of the following must be true? There are two integers given here. The question is which of the following must be true? A plus B is even. I could come out with just one example to contradict the first statement. A plus B is even. A is less than B. I could bring two, an even number, an odd number. Say 2 plus 3 is equal to 5, which is not an even integer. So this need not be true. The question asks for must be true, but then you could also bring this example and tell me, ma'am, it's true. Why can't I mark it right? Now, this truth comes under the could be truth, but here the question is asking for a must be truth. So this has to work for all numbers. I have come out with an example where it doesn't work. So this answer is wrong. AB is an integer. Yes, product of two integers should always be an integer. A plus B, A plus 1 by B is an integer. I do not know anything about A, anything about B. So I'm not very sure about this. I'm not very sure about this. So must be true has to be only this option B. AB is an integer. Now go ahead with look at this could be true. Even for one example, you could find out one example where it is true, then you mark it as true. A plus B is even. Of course, you know that the sum of two even integers is even. Nothing is known about A and B. You're free to plug in any numbers you want. So could be true. Even for one case, it's true. It's true. So for the second question, A plus B is even is correct. AB is an integer is correct. A plus 1 by B is an integer. Yes, it could be an integer. A minus B, A 1 by B, it could also be an integer. So all these can be integers. So A and B are integers with A less than B. Then which of the following could be true? All these could be. You can substitute numbers and check that all these could be true for several numbers. You can come out with examples where all these are true. That's the difference between must be true and could be true. Must be true, come out with a counter example to disprove it. Could be true, you could just write down one example for everything and just say that this is true, right? Next common mistake, not looking out for negation words like except and not. Another trap that ETS gives. Except and not, negation words, right? So let me look at this example, give you this example. If x plus y is equal to z and x is equal to y, then all the following are true except, which means what is it that you need to mark? You need to mark that option which is wrong here, not the option which is correct. Now, if you're adept with algebra, if you're skillful at algebra, you already know that when x plus y is equal to z, 2x plus 2y is equal to 2z, right? Again, x is equal to y, x minus y should be equal to 0. We all know that, right? X minus z is equal to y minus z, perfectly fine. Since x is equal to y, substitute it here, you get 2y is equal to z, or 2x is equal to z, and x is equal to z by 2, also right. But z minus y is equal to 2x, right? Can z minus y is equal to 2x? No, z minus y is equal to x, so this is wrong. But then, which is the correct answer here? The question is asking for except, so except this, everything else is correct. So what is it that you need to check in the exam? This is the correct answer. You understand? Whichever is false is the correct answer because of this word except, a negation word that you need to check out for in the exam. Very, very important. Right. Now, moving on to the next technique, that is the time management. Now, we all know that planning is a fundamental thing for any work to be done, whether it's a household chore or a school work or a college work. All the more important when you have a competitive exam. When you are a working professional, a college student, you have lots of other commitments. You need to learn to squeeze in the time that you have within all these commitments. So it's very, very important to set your target date first and then plan what to study and when to study, and allot that time on a daily basis, allot that duration on a daily basis for your studies, for your competitive exam for GRE. At Galvanize, we have a comprehensive study plan which takes care of all these aspects and squeezes your GRE preparation into your study plan. So all you need to do here is just stick to your study plan blindly. Once you enroll with us, our representatives will walk you through our comprehensive study plan. You will be amazed to find out that it is going to get squeezed in appropriately. It is like a jigsaw puzzle. You have everything here and there scattered, but we make sure that our study plan is fitting into all those scatters here and there. All the empty boxes that you have, empty blanks that you have, we fit our schedule into it for your good, and then you will end up with a perfect score in Quant. Right. Now, this is from the exam preparation point of view. What should you do during the actual exam? Time management on the exam day. So as you know, there are these 5 question types: quantitative comparison, numeric entry, MCQs, MAQs. Right. GRE is a adaptive test, section-wise adaptive test. And GRE Quant, per section you will have 20 questions with a 35-minute duration per section, right? So it is very, very important that you allot or spread out that 35 minutes properly. So here I have given you the time that you need to allot per question type here. Quantitative comparison, as I told you, should not go beyond a 1 minute 15 seconds, or at the most it has to be just 1 minute. Make it just 1 minute for a quantitative comparison question. The reason I told you here is quantitative comparison question, just analytical approach, no formula, no shortcuts, nothing is required here. Look at the question, write the answer, make sure you follow the mnemonics. That's all to quantitative question. And numerical entry question, since you have to make sure that your answer is correct, there is a double checking that is required here because there is no options given here to look at it. You just have to write the answer in the box that's provided. So you should be very, very careful. Sometimes it might require an analytical approach. So 2 to 3 minutes of your time is required for numeric entry question per question. MCQ is 1 to 2 minutes. MAQ is 1 to 2 minutes. Data interpretation 2 to 3 minutes. The reason is you have to allot time to look at the graph, read the graph properly. Look at the question, read the question properly. Match the graph with the question and then write the answer. The answer will be very, very simple. So you need to take that entire 3 minutes to do all these things in the graph. So again, what should you do during that exam? When you have this much time left, suppose you have the entire 35 minutes left, you should be on question number 1. You have 25 minutes left, you should be there on question number 7. You have 15 minutes left, you should make sure that you are on question number 13. You just have 5 minutes left, you should be on question number 19, right? 20th question, the section winds off, you're going to submit it. Again,